Welcome to Shooting Spaces, a real estate photography podcast. Discussions on gear, technique, industry news, and interviews with the best in the business. Now, here are your hosts, Rich Baum and Brian Berkowitz.
Welcome to Shooting Spaces, a real estate photography podcast. This is Rich Baum from Sacramento, California.
And Brian from New York. And thank you everybody for tuning in. Rich, you're about a week off of your Dallas workshop. You fully recovered yet?
I'm actually getting there, yeah. But the problem is I've been unbelievably busy. The moment I stepped off the plane back in Sacramento, I've been shooting from Sunday through, just a week and a half of just madness. So happy to be doing it. And not even a week and a half. It's been like a week. So anyway, really had a great time. Just met some great people. And Dallas had some great ribs and great Texan time, and just wonderful. But happy to be busy. No complaints.
Happy to be back to the grind. So, Rich, we got something new in the works coming up over the next couple of weeks. Just to give everybody a little quick summary of what's going on. Rich and I have some very big plans for the future with this podcast and some other ideas we have. And we have our first, step into what we have planned for the future is hopefully going to happen in the next couple of days, where we're going to start putting together some Facebook Live webinars, interviews, and even Q&As. And we think it's a good way for people to interact live with us. It's kind of going to be like a live podcast through Facebook Live. So, Rich, you and I have been talking about doing this for a while, and I think we're a couple days away from figuring out all the tech stuff and being ready to do this. So if everybody goes and follows our Facebook page, all our Facebook Lives are going to be hosted directly on our Facebook page. We'll let everybody know a couple days before when we're going to host it, and any ideas we're going to have, and any guests we might have, any webinars, tutorials, all different stuff. But everyone definitely go like our Facebook page so you're in tune with when we go live with this stuff.
Yeah, really exciting. We, as you just had mentioned, Brian, we have a lot of things in the pipeline, and I'm not sure if they're all going to come to fruition and actually happen, but we've got some wonderful ideas and really exciting. So I'm really looking forward to probably the next year or 18 months. I think we're going to be getting those things out there. So keep checking in. Stay tuned.
Now, on to today's episode. I'm actually really excited because the last couple episodes, Rich, have been Ask the Guy questions, but we finally have a new guest on, and I'm glad to be able to speak to another professional. And we have a guest with us today who is an architectural photographer, Hudi Greenberger. Hudi, why don't you say hello and welcome to the show.
Hey guys. Hey, Brian and Rich. Thanks for having me.
And just before we start and get into it, why don't you just tell everyone where they can find your work online if they want to look at it while they listen along?
Sure. You can go to hudigreenberger.com. That's HUDIGREENBERGER.com. Starts off at the food section because that's what I love to do the most. But just click architecture and you'll see all my interior and exterior work.
You got some great, Hudi, I checked out your website, some great food photography. And let me tell you, I bow down to you, sir, because I've done my share of food photography just because I had to. And you, my friend, are an artist.
Thank you.
Great stuff.
Thank you.
Before we get into, the nitty gritty and the grind of the architectural stuff you do and why we even brought you on if you're not a real estate photographer, why don't you just give us, I know you for, I guess, a couple of years now. We met officially met when you purchased a lighting track or background system from me a couple of years back, but we know each other through mutual Facebook groups and all that. But I'm pretty sure you were a musician before you started taking pictures. So if you don't mind, why don't you give us a brief history of how you got into this?
Absolutely. So yeah, I play guitar, I did sound, did like the Jewish wedding scene for in New York, tri-state area for 5 years, every freaking night. And I was kind of getting burnt out of it a little bit, playing the same music every night. So I had also given some guitar lessons on the side. And I decided to record a couple guitar lessons for YouTube. And the first 30 seconds was a promo for my band. And I bought the camera to shoot those videos. And somehow I knew that it wasn't just the camera, it was also some lighting. So I got a basic 3-point lighting kit from B&H. And I was actually planning on returning the camera when I was done. That's how not interested in photography I was. So I shot the videos. They looked great. And once I had all the lighting and the background set up in my living room, I figured, hey, why not shoot a couple pictures of my kids if the lighting is so good? And that didn't work out too well. So now I know, because the settings for video are very different than photography. The light just wasn't bright enough to raise my ISO to like 5,000 to get a picture exposed right. And that got me researching like what happened, like how do I get normal photos? And once I start researching something that's like a little technical, that has creativity involved, then that's the end of it. So I got really into it. Oh, you got to use lights and flash. And I bought from a friend of mine, a wedding photographer, who was selling his first set of lights that he bought used. So I bought them from him. And about $40,000 of gear later, here I am.
Only 40,000?
Yeah, I don't shoot medium format. So
funny how that creeps up there.
Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting story, because I know a lot of the people we speak to, when they got into this, they, were hobbyists with photographers growing up as kids through high school, and they always had it in the back of their heads. It seems like you're a little different. I mean, you're always into the arts, obviously. You're a musician, but it seems like, from what you're saying, you literally never picked up a camera until you were ready to shoot your music video.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I love technical and creative things. So I never had a DSLR, but I always kind of knew how to use the manual settings on my point and shoot when the auto wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. And the basic rules of composition, as an artist, like having that, not necessarily like college degree art background, but that eye for art in the back of my head. So I had the basics of composition kind of in my head. And then I did read a book, like I think Digital Photography for Dummies. So, those books are like super basic, but they do give you kind of like a before even amateur, whatever level it is before amateur, just a basic understanding of what goes on in a photo. So that definitely helped. I have some, I look back at them now and I laugh, of course, but I had these are all film, of course, but like it's either point and shoots or even like a disposable camera. I have pictures that I had like an album when I was a kid, in high school. There was one section called photography, and I had a couple of photos in there that I called photography, and some basic landscape stuff. I figured out how to throw the background out of focus at one point, so I was all excited. I remember taking a picture of a salt shaker with a ketchup in the background, just like whatever I found in my kitchen at the time. So,
did you ever go in your bathroom and do water droplets?
No,
I did that. That was fun.
Yeah.
Well, I know, Hudi, I've seen on your Instagram, you've had some water splashing images before. So I know you're into that.
Yeah, now I do. Yeah, not 15 years ago, though.
So when did you start, I guess, this transition to commercial photography? How recently?
So it kind of happened right away. So that friend that sold me my first set of lights, like he was always like, yeah, Hudi, one day you're going to be doing this for a living. I know you. And I was like, no, I would never do this. It doesn't make sense. Because in my mind, photography was either shooting portraits or shooting weddings, and neither of which I wanted to do. So I was just like an expensive hobby, and I wasn't going to go too crazy with it. Then a friend of mine, actually a neighbor across the street from me, he knew that I was getting into photography, and he was selling some stuff on Amazon, and he asked me to shoot. I think he was selling sunglasses and some watches at the time. I was like, okay, why not? Let's see what happens. How much are you going to pay? And he said, assuming the pictures are going to be good, I'll give you $100 an hour. I was like, okay, $100 an hour sounds like a pretty fair starting price. And after he posted my photos, his sales tripled. So I was like, okay, if I can, for $100, get this guy's sales to triple, I'm sure he'd pay me $300 an hour to get his sales to triple also. So and that's exactly what happened.
It was a great referral.
Yeah. So those watches that he was selling, he had actually been trying to push those for about 2 years, and he could not get rid of the stock. He posted the photos and they were gone in 2 weeks. So that worked. So, and he's been a client ever since for almost over 5 years.
Nice. So you're only 5 years into this, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And from where those first Amazon pictures were till your work now, it's probably insane. I would love to see those first Amazon pictures one day.
I actually have it on my website. So let me just double check. I'm pretty sure it's on there. I took it down. Oh, well. Okay. I had it was a pair of sunglasses.
If you send me one, we can post it in the show notes.
Okay, sure. It's actually a pretty good shot. So
you're a natural.
Well, again, it comes down to the technical part of it. So that's like on the product photography side of things, it's super technical. Like the angle of incidence and where the highlights fall. So if you're good at pool, you'd be good at photography, because it's all aim.
And what is that called? I like to tell ask my students, what is that called?
Which one?
What you were just talking about, the
angle of incidence. Yeah.
There you go. I love it.
So that's just, it's pretty straightforward. The way I teach my students is I say, look in a mirror. What do you see? If you're looking straight at the mirror, you see yourself, right? Now, if you want to see your friend that's standing 5 feet to the left of you in the mirror, what do you have to do? You got to move 5 feet to your right. So if you're looking at the angle at the mirror at 45 degrees, what you're going to see is 45 degrees in the other direction. So, and same thing, 30, 60, 20, 70. So it just gets a little complicated when there's something round and shiny. That gets a little crazy.
Well, I think that's great. And I think today, Brian, we're going to be talking about kind of going, this whole show is about real estate photography, but it's really about shooting spaces. And the other type of photography, design and architectural, it would be something people would like to hear about. So why don't we go into that?
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah. Tell us about maybe, I don't know, Brian, what do you think? Just on the differences?
How did you get from product photography to architecture? Because your architectural work is amazing as well. And it's definitely different looking at it from what I know a lot of the real estate photographers that we speak to all the time put out. It has a very commercial feel to it, which is good. Right. Your work, it kind of almost looks like CGI, even though I know it's not. But that's how good your lighting is and your composition. So how did that transition from product photographer go into architecture?
Okay, cool. So, in a lot of product photography, especially when you're shooting like for Amazon guys, it's possible to get some of these shots straight out of the camera, with all the perfect highlights and the perfect shadows and all the angles and everything. But for workflow purposes, it's much easier to shoot like the left side with one light and then the right side with another set of lights, and then just composite the two pieces together later. So when the first person who, I don't even remember who it was, had asked me to shoot an interior, I was like, okay, let's just approach this the same way I approached product photography. If I can't light the whole thing at one time, let's just light one piece at a time. So I put the camera down on a tripod. I don't remember if I had already purchased Cam Ranger by then, or it was a purchase I got later. But either way, I kind of just lit different sections of the room with my flash. Most of the time, just either bouncing off the ceiling or shooting a speed light through a scrim or something like that. Or maybe I even had softboxes. I don't remember. And prayed for the best, actually. And I brought it home. I kind of thought about it, like as I was shooting, what I needed to light and which areas I needed to get. I started off with just like a HDR of the ambient light, like kind of just to have that number one as a base, and number two, just in case I screwed up with the flash.
In the hole.
Exactly. So and then I brought it home. I started putting the pieces together in Photoshop, and I kind of blew myself away with the results. So I was like, damn, this is gorgeous. This is awesome. So yeah, and that's it. Kind of just improved the craft as I went along, and now I found out it's called light painting.
and you figured this out all on your own?
Yes.
Very good. Yeah. Very good, my friend. I tell people, I don't want to put it down at all, but it ain't brain surgery, and,
right.
and if we can figure it out, everybody can. But
right.
No, I commend you, because it took me. Maybe it took you longer than it seems. From just hearing you say that, but it took me a while to learn all this. And, a lot of people out there struggle with it. So may I ask you, what types of education would you recommend, or what resources out there would be there for somebody to go from real estate photography and want to get into doing what you're doing?
Sure. So what's the guy's name on F-Stoppers? He has a DVD.
Mike Kelly.
Mike Kelly's DVD is fantastic. He pretty much has an identical style to what I'm doing. I did learn a couple of tips and tricks from his Photoshop side of things. But he's pretty much doing exactly what I'm doing, more or less to the T. So that would be an excellent purchase. Very well, very highly recommended there.
Again, it's geared towards the higher end photography.
Yeah, you're not someone's paying you $100, $200, even $500 a house. You're not doing this. This is hours of work. I charge like $2,000 to $2,500 a day, and I deliver maybe 20 photos tops. So,
how long are you taking to edit those? How long are you taking to edit those 20 photos?
Okay, so roughly? I trained a guy in overseas to do it for me, and I kind of recorded my screen, sent it off to him, and he screwed up the first 10 or so. But I refined him. I refined him along the way, and now it's still not perfect. Sometimes I need like a good hour or so. But the beauty is he paths out for me every section of the room. So I'll have a separate path for the walls, a separate for the windows, a separate for the floor, a separate. If there's furniture, each piece will be pathed out for me. So that's kind of the biggest time saver. So I just shot this house. One of the designers I shoot for, she did an incredible job. But like there was so much texture and so many things going on in the room. And it was just like this big open floor space with a dining room table and a living room set, and this wall with all kinds of wood and textures and lights and who knows what. So he pathed all that stuff out for me. He did a horrible job on his end of the editing from a creative standpoint, but once I got it back with all the paths, so that saved me probably 2 hours of sitting there selecting things. So yeah, that saves a lot of time.
Yeah, having somebody just pat that out for you seems like the biggest time saver in itself, because then at that point you have pretty much all your masks already, and you can go in and just fill in all your other layers pretty quickly at that point. So,
and so he does a better job of pathing than I do, because he has probably a lot more patience than I do. So I would never be able to sit there for 2 hours doing paths. Not for my personality. So once I get them back from him, depending on the shoot, if it was like I do shoot, I guess like you can call it real estate photography, but I shoot it like architecture. I have a couple of clients that just have properties like all over the place. So for them, it's not a one-time sale for the photos. Meaning once they sell the house, that's what I call a one-time sale. That's most real estate photography. This is more like he creates a brochure and a website. So it's I guess worth it for them to spend the money to do it right and get these incredible photos. So they have properties like I've been to 7 states and probably 80 different locations for him. And so that's, unless they have a model apartment, it's usually an empty room. So shots like that, the empty rooms, I can edit once I get them back from my guy overseas, I can edit 2 days worth of shooting in like 2 hours. But then the heavier duty stuff, like when I shoot for these interior designers and these all kinds of crazy textures on the walls and lots of different elements in the room, especially now that mixed metals are very in. So there's lots of gold and silver highlights and metal stuff all over the place. It takes a long time to get all those highlights right. So that could take me still about 4 or 5 hours of editing for a day's worth of shooting. So, yeah.
And I think I can safely say that I would think the majority of people listening here would, if they're just doing real estate photography, this is what it's all about. Get up there, move up, shoot better, smarter, make more money, and go and to the next level. That's great.
I mean, if you're shooting like real estate, and I mean, you tell me, I don't even know what's the going rate for a typical standard house for real estate photography.
$1 million.
Oh yeah, no, I'm quitting right now.
No, that's the house. That's the house.
I think it's really market dependent.
Yeah, it's market dependent. Okay, yeah, I hear that.
It really is market. We actually have had conversations about this in our podcast. It's just it's so hard to say. Even in the same town, it's so hard to say. There's There's, how good is your work? How quick is your turnaround,
Right.
your reliability, all those things. So it's hard to say, but I am very pleased with where I'm at right now, price wise. Some places I don't make as much on, especially the little places, but I make it back on the big places, and I make it back in the twilights and some of the add-ons. So yeah, it's a working out well. But I did have a day this week where I'm making what you're making, but I wish I could do that all the time and more often. So it's definitely possible.
Yeah, it's and also for myself, I like shooting. Even though this one, I'm talking like in circles here. That one big client that I have that has properties all over the place. So even though it's constant work, which is why I take it, and then he's been with me for 4 years already now. So definitely very loyal to him. But it is a little bit boring. So for me, this is a personal thing. I love shooting for these interior designers because I love seeing what they take these spaces and just turn them into. It's just incredible. It's absolutely amazing. It's like mind-bogglingly amazing. So, so for the real estate stuff, I I pop headphones on, and 8 hours later, I'm done. It just I have the system down so well in my head, like what parts of the room need to be lit and the order of how I shoot it. It just, I don't even have to think about it anymore. It just, boom, it just happens. Pretty awesome.
So I wanted to ask you, Hudi, about, I don't know if you're at the point yet, or hopefully you are, but about getting new clients. I mean, do you go out? Do you look for clients? Do you solicit your services, or are you at the point now where everything is referral based and you just have a waiting list of clients, which is what we all hope for, that are waiting to shoot with you? Or do you have to go out and hustle like all of us to get our business?
So because of the market that I'm in, I do three things. I shoot food, I shoot products, and I shoot architecture. So I usually don't have to worry too much. I'm usually booked about 2 weeks in advance, 2 to 3 weeks in advance, because I shoot all three different things pretty well. So between the three of them, I'm pretty busy. If I would have to just shoot architecture, that's it, then I would definitely have to get out there and hustle more. No question about it.
Most of your clients are coming to you then based off referrals, and you're not going out and looking for that work at this point.
But I am just recently, about 2-3 weeks ago, I just started the process of I'm trying to cut the products out because they are kind of boring for me. I kind of got sick of that. Shooting products, like something I shot today, which was a really creative shot, even though it's a product photo, but it was really creative. Actually, we're doing some cinemagraphs today. They were awesome. So stuff like that, those kind of product jobs I would still take. I love doing that. But like your typical Amazon client, I'm kind of done with that. So even though they pay pretty well, but they do get kind of boring. I kind of get sick of stuff pretty quick. So I would love to shoot just food and some architecture. So that's kind of where the direction I'm heading now. So I am working on the hustle part. So I can tell you that my process for that, I have some friends that do have agents, and I spoke to them. They got me in touch with different agencies that they've worked for in the past, and they're showing my portfolio around. People are impressed, so that's good. So far, nothing came of it, but but at least my name is getting around a little bit. And then there's these guys, Rich and Brian, that have this podcast. That's always good. Anytime, and the point of that, by the way, is as much as you can get your name out there, even if it's even if it's just a bunch of other photographers, the more your name is on the internet, the more work, the easier it is for the right people to find you. So every time,
Hudi, I'm all over that. I like to think of myself sometimes as I don't want to whore myself out, but I'm kind of gone over the top on that end. Yeah.
That's good. I mean, that's what it is. That's how when someone searches architectural photographer, you want your name associated with that with that Google search. So the more that happens, do it and get it out there.
Now, do you do a blog, Hudi?
I don't.
That's a great way to get your name out there and get.
I love to write, but unfortunately, I am so busy. I just don't have the time for it. So the only writing I do is one of the magazines I shoot food for. I actually have a column of how to cook, not what to cook, but how to cook, like the science and technical stuff behind it.
Oh, nice. You're a chef also. You
I'm
didn't
not
say
a
that.
chef, but I know what I'm doing on the science end. So,
It's funny though. I kind of look based on what Rich just said. As a photographer, I kind of view Instagram as a photographer's blog in a way,
absolutely,
because it's a place where you can go and, I know I've said this before many times. A lot of times I'll just send my clients to my Instagram page when they ask for my portfolio as opposed to my regular website. And it's a place where I'm just updating constantly and always adding, I probably post 3 to 5 times a week. So I'm always adding new stuff. And I kind of look at that as my blog. Because if I was going to go out and just blog on my website, it would be the same thing. It would be about a job I'm shooting or pictures that I'm working on that week. Instagram is a little quicker in that regard. I can get an image up in a couple of minutes, and I have my post for the day up there, if you want to call it that. Right. So, as a photographer, I kind of look at it as a way to blog daily and get your images out there.
Right. Yep. That's that Instagram is more about like your recent work, and this is the way I use it, at least. It's more about your recent work, and your website is your actual portfolio. So to that side of things, on my website, I'm actually working now to try to clean up the website. There's just way too many images on there. I'm working on getting them edited, like not editing the photos, but editing the content. Is like I just as I get pictures, as I shoot more of the stuff that I like, I just kind of throw it up on the website, and then now there's like probably 250 images up there. It's like a little crazy.
Let me ask you a question, if I might break in here, regarding your website and numbers of photos. I'm a big believer that even if you're like me, I shoot weddings and sports and you name it, but I want my business, my real estate business, which also encompasses, I don't really shoot architecture, but I shoot design photography and commercial work. That is on my website. And I say, don't include maybe headshots, but don't include food, don't include landscape, wedding photography there. What would you say regarding, I know you don't do a lot of true real estate photography, but I would think you would want to have a specific site for architectural photography or design. You don't want those people to see regular real estate work. What would you say for somebody just coming up in this business that wants to dabble their foot and get more into your type of photography?
It's a good question. So for me, where I am right now, I am still shooting products. I am still shooting food. I am doing all these things. So I do want them. I want all three on my website, but I do have it coming straight. When you go to hudigreenberger.com, you go straight to food. The second section is architecture, and then comes the products. So that's kind of the order that I want people to look at it. I want them to come right away and associate me with food photography, because that's like, I love to cook. I love to shoot food. Love to work with food. So that's where I want them to see me first. There is a lot of competition in that space. So meaning lots of people can shoot really good food photos, because it has a lot to do with the styling. And if you're hiring a good stylist, you just have to know how to light the photo, and you should be good to go. Whereas in architecture, that's more of like, you have your unique style, and that's more like sellable, so to speak. And then products is products. So for people starting out, I mean, it's a tough decision, because everyone likes to show everything that they've done, like a very well-rounded person. Like, I could shoot all this different stuff. But you kind of have to, at some point, you once you decide what direction you want to head, you got to double down and just get all the other stuff off your website, and say, I am an architectural photographer, period. And that's it. You can maybe have a personal project on the side, and to show that you do some other stuff, or like you said, have multiple websites. And definitely Instagram feeds, you can throw different things on there. But if you really have your mindset on one direction of real estate photography, go all out. That's what I would definitely suggest. That have just architecture, just real estate stuff on your website. Instagram feed should be only real estate photos. That's how people find you. If people are looking for a real estate photographer and they find you on Instagram because you did some hashtag that brought them to your page, and then 3 posts later, or every second post is a wedding photo. So what does this guy do? Does he do weddings, or does he do architecture? So
very good stuff.
I even went one step further, and I actually have two separate websites, as I've said before, where I have a website, because I'm kind of in a transition period here where I've been doing real estate photography for several years, and I'm starting to build up my design and architectural portfolio. And as you said, having two different websites, especially during my transition period, I don't necessarily want them to intermingle, because my architectural work is definitely higher end and I charge a lot more. So I have a site devoted to my architectural stuff and then a separate site devoted to my real estate stuff. And on my higher end architectural stuff, I use my brand, my own personal name as my brand, as opposed to my real estate stuff where I don't. Because with my architecture stuff, I'm actually selling myself as a brand as opposed to the real estate photography. Even though I'm doing all my shooting now, if I had to send somebody out to replace me, I don't think my clients really care one way or another.
Right.
Whereas the higher end stuff, they do. So, and I might look at my Instagram, I have just a mix of everything. So at that point, but I mean, everything's in the same genre. It's all real estate or architecture, but I have two separate sites and they kind of coexist. And it's actually benefited me because I think I've told Rich this story before. About a month and a half ago, because I ranked pretty well for both my sites, I got the same inquiry or the same lead from my website to both different sites.
Cool.
without the client knowing that I'm the same one and the same person.
Right.
So,
Cool.
if, we talk about, search engine real estate, if there are 10 listings on the first page of Google and I'm taking up 2 out of the 10 with my two different websites, that just, raises my chances of anybody else coming in. So I'm looking at your architectural stuff, and I see a lot of lifestyle stuff also with models and stuff. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and how you brought that into your architectural work? Because the stuff looks pretty good, almost as if you were lighting them for portraits. And I don't know if that's what you did, but
yeah, that kind of is what I did. I mean, I approached it more or less the same way I approached my architecture photos, which is I lit up the whole room. I kicked the models out. I lit the room the way I would normally light it, and then I brought them in and I lit them. So then it was just, I sent the client one photo with them and one photo without them, and it's exactly the same photo, just with and without the models. Because I had the whole room lit up perfectly already. And actually, if if you're looking at the white kitchen with the woman and the child, the woman in like that teal dress.
The sixth picture on your portfolio for anybody listening.
Like okay. So if you go on my Instagram feed, which is at Hudi G, by the way, HUDIG, I don't know, about 10, 15 posts back, I posted the behind the scenes photo of that. And you can actually see the softboxes in the shot and the light stands. And it almost, the section where they're sitting looks almost exactly the same as this photo. And that was straight out of the camera. So I like kind of that section I had lit perfectly. And then I pulled them out and I pulled the softboxes out and I finished lighting the rest of the room. So that was that one. And then a few later, there's actually, I'm looking at the grid view, so I don't even know how many later. It's actually the one, if you're going through one by one, it's the one right before that. There's like a soft blue couch with two girls sitting on it and reading a magazine. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. That was actually shot for the panels that are behind them. It's like these really easy to install, do-it-yourself kind of panels. And the whole set was built for the shoot, the walls and everything. So that was more of a lifestyle shoot than an architecture shoot, but it's kind of like an architecture shoot with people. So I threw it in there.
Nice. I love the grading in that shot. It has a very vintage feel to it, but
exactly. I put some like toning on it. So little bit. I usually don't do that, but I just felt like it went with that bright window. So
it works.
Yeah, I kind of made it. I kind of lit the scene, making it look as if that window was lighting the scene, and it definitely is adding some light to the scene. But for the most part, it's being lit by my lights, which like I said, they were in different places, and then I just photoshopped them out.
Cool.
Very
stuff.
nice, very nice. And I love your application of working with people. I don't do it as much as I would like, but I really want to start doing more of it. And do you find that the majority of people you're working with are professional actors, or how do you get these people Just
Yeah,
they were there.
those two photos specifically are all models. They're all professional models. There's another one a little later on. It's like a lobby of a Manhattan, building in Manhattan, and there's a guy sitting behind the desk. So he was not a professional model. He was the guy sitting behind the desk. But he looked really cool. So I was like, okay, let's use you. Do you mind? He's like, no, I'm all right. Just send me the picture when you're done. So I took one with him and one without him, and I sent both to the clients. So that way they have the option. And that's that. I have another one. I don't think it's on the website here.
The image of the man with the glass of whiskey with the cigar behind the desk is an unbelievable image. It's really strong. Yeah. I love that one.
Well, is that the one with the huge cigar that's not lit?
Exactly.
That was the same shoot with the panels in the back. That was the same photo shoot. That guy, I don't know who carved his face out, but it's just incredible model. He's just like chiseled. His face is amazing. So it's pretty cool. And it was like kind of like a silvery panel, so I had to get that light to show up like that. So, and again, lit the same way as all the other ones, just soft boxes to light up the whole scene. I put the model in, sat him down, took a couple pictures, got the pose right, and again, the light that's on the model, those lights were in my photo. But because the camera, one thing I missed talking about before is that in order for this to work, of putting these photos together, your camera has to be on a tripod. Otherwise, it will be impossible to line them up in Photoshop. So the camera stayed on the tripod. I lit the scene, sat the model down, got the light right on him, and then I put the pieces together later.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Let me ask you. Excuse me. I kind of like to touch base with gear. What do you what are you shooting with? And anything you want to say as far as we like to talk about geared heads and tilt shifts and things which really lend themselves towards this direction you want to go into, not necessarily daily real estate. But what do you use and what do you any suggestions and what's going on with it?
Okay, sure. So the gear I use is the camera is a Nikon D750. I love Nikon versus Canon, and I don't want to get into I don't want to get into that whole debate, but I could tell you.
No, I'm a Nikon 40 years.
Okay, good.
But that's not good.
When you need to raise the shadows and pull out detail out of the shadows, I mean, I can. I don't have it now, but I remember when I first switched to Nikon, I did some side by sides, and it's just like the Nikon blew the Canons out of the water. Okay, but we're not talking about that. But I do shoot Nikon. I use a D750. I purposely do not use the 800 series because if I did, I would just be waiting in Photoshop for days at a time for things to load. So, I mean, my photos are 99% of the time they're viewed on the web. And if they ever are printed, it's in a magazine, not huge. And the few times they are printed huge, it's just for like a booth for an expo. And the print quality on those the DPI is really low. So D750 is more than enough resolution to handle that. I mean, I've had photos that were printed 10 feet tall and not a problem at all with the D750. So no reason for me to.
I love my D750 when it's working, and I have published magazine covers at 16,000 ISO.
Yeah,
so
right. Exactly.
I'm a big fan there. But I just put my money down today on my new Sony A7 III.
Oh, yeah,
so
good for you.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Looking forward to that.
So D750, 99% of the time I'm using a 1635 f4, the Nikon 1635 f4. I do have the 24 millimeter tilt shift, or the Nikon version is called PS.
You don't have the 19?
Nikon makes a 19. I didn't even.
Yeah,
okay.
It's only. I have it. It's only $3,400,
okay.
But
that's why I don't have it.
They just came out with that last year.
Oh, that's why I didn't know about it. Okay, got it. Okay, so when I was, I originally had the 24 tilt shift, and no matter how sharp the tilt shift is, the 1635 is better. And the little bit of correcting I'm doing in Photoshop it's really not that big of a deal. So it takes about, especially now that they added it to Lightroom, about a year and a half ago, the perspective correction, it takes an extra 30 seconds per photo. And I find the 1635 to be heads away sharper than the tilt shifts.
I will say that I have I've been a big fan. I've had my 16 to 35, several copies around the world, 6 continents.
Wow.
But I have been having problems with needing to get them recalibrated. So I've had to have it twice this year recalibrated, and the Nikon can't seem to get it right. So I haven't been using my 16 to 35. It's kind of soft around the corners.
I think you're just shooting too much, Rich.
It's me. It's all me. It's not Nikon.
So what it definitely is a little softer around the corners when you're shooting like really wide at 16. So what I do is I'm usually not shooting actually at 16. So I'll get my composition, let's say at 20 to 28 or so millimeter range, and then I'll pull it back out to 16 and then crop later. That way, when I fix the perspective, I don't have to worry about messing up my composition. I have the leeway to crop it afterwards. So again, going back to the pixel thing, I know that I'm not needing those pixels anyways. So I don't mind losing a few in the crop.
Good advice. Yeah. And what are you using for a head and tripod?
Okay, tripod. I got to look it up. It's a Manfrotto Legs. It's about $200. I don't remember the exact model. But they're solid. They're lightweight, not too lightweight. It holds its own. Most of the Manfrotto tripods have that center beam that goes 90 degrees. So sometimes I need in a tight space, get over a countertop. So I'll use that 90 degrees to get the camera, set up the legs right off the countertop, and then have the head kind of extend over the sink, so I can shoot from the perspective of the sink. It's kind of cool. I love that. I also, a really cool tool that saved me a couple of times is the Platypod Pro, I think it's called. I keep that in my bag. I used it in the last year since I bought it, maybe twice, but those 2 times that I needed it, oh man, did it work. It was perfect. So you just take the head off, stick it on that, and you're good to go. So that's a really cool $30 or $40 save your butt thing to keep in your bag. I actually have a little box in the back of my car. I call it my save my butt box. So it's all these random things that you're going to forget at home one day. So
I'd need a really big box. I'm sorry.
For a tripod head, I use the Junior Gear head. Love it. I have 3 of them. One on my travel tripod, which is those Manfrotto, and then 2 in the studio. They are just amazing for real estate. It's the ball heads. You can go crazy. You set it where you want it, and then you lock it, and then it moves. Pain in the neck. So definitely a absolutely worthwhile investment. It's expensive, $250, but they are well worth it.
That's not bad. Rich has the D4. What is that? $1,000, Rich?
Actually, I found mine new used at Adorama, and got a really right stuff head on it. I think I got it for under $900, but that was a little unusual. I'm loving. I do love it, and I find I spend so much time dealing with the knobs of a geared head that it's just want it to feel really good. Right. And so many of my workshop attendees in the last couple of workshops we had actually at the last workshop we had 5 or 6 different geared heads side by side, so everybody got to play with everything, and it was really fun.
That's cool.
Really, really fun. Yeah.
And then Cam Ranger, like I mentioned before, if not for that, I'd probably die every shoot from walking back and forth to the camera. But Cam Ranger is amazing. I have a little iPad mini, and I just walk around the room flashing all the different areas, and just shoot from my iPad, which is amazing. That's absolutely essential. And then for lights, I like the very cheap lights. The Yangigos 563s, I think they are 560 III. They're fantastic. They're $60 or $50, and they have a built-in receiver. So I just need one trigger on my camera. And I have 4 or 5 of them. And for that price, that's not a big deal. I just have 2 gazillion rechargeable batteries. I go through probably 36 batteries in a day, sometimes more. So Basically, the more lights, the more light I have in the right place for each shot, the less shots I need in Photoshop. So if I can set up 4 or 5 lights, like let's say I'm shooting a room that leads into 2 other rooms, so I need you have to light that room in the back also. So I'll just put a flash in there on a stand and just leave it there instead of taking another photo that I'm going to have to Photoshop in later. That way I have all those rooms in the back lit already. That's a couple less steps that I have to do later. So the more flashes you have, the better, and they're only $60, so not too big of a deal. A couple of lightweight light stands, nothing, not too expensive. I have, for the one that I walk around with, that I have, I don't remember the name of it. Adorama makes it. It's the one that you lift it and the legs kind of close for you. Then you put it down. The Cheetah stand, I think is the other brand.
They're auto
stands. Yeah, there you go. So
I use them for weddings, but I've actually had a terrible thing happen, and be careful. I scratched a wooden floor using mine, and minor scratch, but it was in front of the agent, and the owner saw it, and it became a really, really big deal. So I don't use those for anything but weddings anymore.
Okay, mine have rubber feet, so so that's it. So I mean, I'll walk into a shoot with 2 bags: my camera bag over my shoulder, and then I have a rolling light stand bag that has my tripod and light stands in there, and that's it. And people are like, "Oh, where's the rest of your gear?" I'm like, "That's it. You're looking at it."
That's great. No, I think keep it simple, and you show that. It's not all about the gear. It's really about your eye and your abilities and things like that.
Yep. All about the lights. Light and composition, that's what it's about.
As we just about run out of time here, let me ask you just one final question. For people that are doing real estate primarily now and they're looking to get into higher end stuff, do you have 1 or 2 tips that you can say these are must do things to kind of make that transition from shooting 15 houses a week or 20 houses a week to, booking that 1 or 2 gigs a week and making the same or if not more money?
Right. Okay. So here's a really good tip. And I've told this to some other people also. A lot of times, like my students will say, well, what do I shoot? Like, what do you mean? I'm talking about products and food students. And they'll be like, what do you shoot? What do I shoot? I was like, what do you mean? Do you have a bathroom in your house? Like, go take your shampoo, go take your toothbrush, go take your hairbrush, go take your underwear out, shoot whatever is in the house. Just go shoot it. That way you can start building up a portfolio. I mean, it's really not that big of a deal. So For real estate, it's the same thing. You're out there shooting houses. So you'll spend an extra hour or 2. Let's say you come to a house and there's a really nice living room. So spend the extra hour and get that shot really right. So yeah, you won't make as much money that day, but you now have something portfolio worthy that you can show a higher end client. So maybe you have a friend who has a really nice house, doesn't mind letting you shoot it. There's always people looking for free work. So if you really have something that to show them that you're not just practicing on them, but you're actually going to get some decent photos, call up a interior designer that's in your area, or kitchen companies are actually really good people to talk to. People like companies that install kitchens, design and install kitchens. Call them up and say, hey, I'm a photographer. I'm trying to transition into this higher end thing. Can I shoot for you for free, or for $50, or for $100, or whatever it is, just to make something? And I'm sure that you'll find some people that are excited to have some cheaper work done. Cheaper as in less expensive.
That's some great advice. So I just want to urge everybody again to go out and check out your work. Why don't you plug your website and your social again, Hudi, before we sign off?
Okay, so website is Hudi Greenberger, HudiGreenberger.com, HudiGreenberger.com. And Instagram is @HudiG, HUDIG.
Awesome. And yeah, definitely take a look at the portfolio on your website, especially because it was a couple of minutes earlier where we spoke about some specific images. So it's definitely good to be able to reference those as we speak about them. And your work is outstanding. Keep it up.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. I've really enjoyed looking at your work, and I get so many. I'm inspired by, especially looking at the work with people and the food photography, because that's a big challenge for me. And no, just everybody check out Hudi's website, because you'll get some great information, great ideas. Thank you so much.
We didn't even dive into the food photography, but your food photography work is amazing also. And
thank you very much.
All right, so we thank you for coming on, Hudi. It's great chatting with you and learning a little bit about your story and about the work you do.
Cool, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
And Rich,
yeah,
a pleasure Brian. As always.
Oh, as always, good stuff, man. Thank you for arranging Hudi. Enjoyed and learned so much, and look forward to getting more designer photographers interviews. So that's great.
Exactly. And everybody, as we mentioned earlier, make sure to go and like our Facebook page, because in the next couple of days, we will be doing our first Facebook interactive live Q&A webinar. We're not sure exactly what we're going to do yet, but you will know once we know. So definitely check us out. And don't forget, leave a review and subscribe to the podcast. Rich, have yourself a fantastic week of shooting.
Yeah, and have some wonderful time and weather in New York, guys. And we're out here in California. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I got to leave now because I got to do a twilight. So you guys, I'm living the dream, baby.
Hey,
living the dream.
All right. Until next time, everyone.
Bye, guys.
This has been Shooting Spaces, a real estate photography podcast. Subscribe to the show and don't forget to leave us a review. You can also follow Rich and Brian on social media and at their website, shootingspacespodcast.com.